Mike Wilson here, the host of the Stutter with Confidence podcast, and I'm happy today to be joined. Well, you want to introduce yourself, Lindsey?
Hi, Mike. Good morning. My name is Lindsey Lambert. I live in the Midwest. I am currently in Raymore, Missouri. It's about 10 minutes south from Kansas City. I am currently an assistant nurse manager. I work at the Kansas City VA at the medical center, the main medical center here. And I've been a government employee there since 2011. Got an internship out of nursing school. Well, my senior year in nursing school internship. And then I got into staffing in 2012. So I've been with the VA ever since.
Gotcha. And so you're an assistant nurse manager. How many employees are you involved with in helping to manage?
So I'm in an inpatient unit. I'm currently on 8 West. So we're a med surge, telemetry, oncology unit. I manage 43 people. We're currently in the process of losing a couple nurses, so we'll go down to about 40. So this is actually kind of my first nurse manager position. So I'm definitely coming out of my comfort zone as far as being put in the public eye and having to report to my staff and my higher ups on a daily basis. So,
and tell us, if you would, about your stuttering journey. I mean, what kind of an impact would you say has stuttering had on your life experiences?
So stuttering, as far as having an impact on my life experiences, I kept to myself. I had a few close friends. I was commonly perceived as someone who was stuck up or mean because I wasn't as conversational as everybody else, and kind of came to the realization in the 5th grade. And ever since then, I kind of became an introvert. So it's been a tough journey for me. I like a lot about who I am as a person, but that one thing always plagued me. So I hope, as I'm getting older, everybody says things improve as you get older. With age, you tend to not care as much as you grow older. So I'm just trying to continue working on that journey where I don't put so much emphasis on how I speak and have a more positive outlook on how I speak. But it never really kept me from going after my dreams, but it promoted a lot of embarrassment and not wanting to be myself because of my stutter. So, but yeah.
Gotcha. And you said you had the realization around the 5th grade. Was that a super challenging time when you first realized that you had this thing that was different and that perhaps it was not something that that other kids thought was normal?
I don't remember per se anybody making fun of me. And I had a best friend who would call on my name whenever we were doing popcorn reading. Like you read a passage or a paragraph and then you say popcorn and you choose somebody else in the class to read. And my best friend would always pick me because she knew I was beginning to get self-conscious about my speech. Like throughout kindergarten through the fourth grade, I had a stutter. It was known I had a stutter, but the realization that I had one didn't hit me to the fifth grade. I don't know if it was just a maturity thing. I was in fifth grade, you're 11 or 10 or 11. You start realizing things about yourself. But I always had encouraging friends, and they thought they knew that was a part of me. I remember going back to West Virginia because I moved out to the Midwest in the sixth grade. So that was basically around my transition time of realizing about my stutter and then being tore out from everything I've known. My dad lives out on the East Coast. The family and friends that I've was around since kindergarten to the fifth grade. I think that also took kind of a big part on, who I was as a person, and got angry at life around that time in my life as well. But I just, and then coming into a new situation, it just caused me to retreat even more. So, and I felt in like a retreative mode pretty much all through high school. I had a few close friends, a boyfriend or the person that I was dating at the time, and that was it. I kind of kept a close knit circle, and then my outlet was sports. I was on the swim team and the basketball team in high school, and I made most of my friends off of the sports teams. So.
Gotcha. And did playing sports sort of give you, was that helpful for you to keep some level of confidence and sanity? I mean, I asked that because that was the case, I would say, in my case, playing basketball through high school, that at least I had something that I knew I was decent at, and where I could express myself without having to talk in a way.
Right. I agree. I had a certain sense of confidence about myself. I was an athlete. I had the camaraderie amongst my teammates. And it feels good. It helps your mental well-being whenever you're active. So I think, being involved in swimming and basketball, I played basketball since the fifth grade, all the way up to the 11th grade. I didn't play my senior year because I didn't get along with the coach. So I quit basketball, which I don't know why I did. I was young and aggravated, so I decided to move on. But the lettering, I lettered every year in swimming. So it was nice, and it didn't feel, I think I didn't feel as much pressure in the sports situations. I felt more at home whenever I was in the pool or on the court. So I think that really, really helped. I think I smeared my makeup, Mike. I rubbed my eye, and I don't know if my makeup smeared, but oops, sorry guys.
No worries. It's all good. This is authenticity. It happens. So, well, in your experience around the fifth and sixth grade when you moved away, for me, I moved after the seventh grade. So going into eighth grade, moved from Memphis to Atlanta, and I didn't know anybody in Atlanta. In Memphis, I had a whole group of friends, and I was already starting to hide my stuttering for sure by that point. But I did have a big group of kids that I had known a long time. And when I moved to Atlanta for the first 3 years, for eighth, ninth, and 10th grade, I didn't have any close friends. And looking at the rest of my life, that was very out of character, because before that, I had my close friends in Memphis. And then once I got to somewhere between 10th and 11th grade, I made a couple good friends finally, although it was during a fluent period. So I finally crawled out of my shell for a period of time before crawling back into my shell when the fluency went away later in my junior year. But those 3 years, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade were brutal years. I mean, not even having any close friends and moving somewhere new at that age when you have what I now would call a good stutter, but then thought of as an awful stutter, was definitely tough. And that sense of isolation, like nobody I know could have any idea how I feel. And in my case, I didn't know anybody else that stuttered. There was no support group. Getting to know other kids that stutter would have been so valuable. Just know that you weren't alone. And would have been far more valuable than any of the speech therapy I was getting over those years. Just put me in the room with other kids who stutter would have been amazing. But did you feel that pretty intense sense of isolation also, like nobody around you could understand what you were experiencing?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I met one boy in the 6th grade. His name was Ahmed, and I think he was from Germany or Russia, and he had a real bad stutter, or he had more blocks and difficulties getting out words and stuff more so than what I did. And that was the only person that I knew. And then I moved away from that and come out to the Midwest, not finding anybody who speaks like me. And even if they did stutter, a lot of people who stutter, they stutter covertly, convert. What is it? Convert?
Covertly.
Covertly. So you don't know if they do or don't. So I very felt much alone. I don't feel so much alone anymore, but anytime I was to speak to somebody or find somebody who did have a stutter and they did it openly, I immediately call them out on it. And I say, hey, I noticed you have a stutter. I do too. Because I just want them to know if they were feeling isolated, that they're not alone. And I want them to know that I stutter and I understand if they're having a hard time with their stutter or not, that I'm also another person that stutters. But those are few and far in between. But now getting more involved in the support groups, the Stutter with Confidence with you, the Facebook groups now. And I've been doing that now for maybe the past like 5 years, 6 years. And then I still need to go to a conference at the NSA conference, have yet to go to one. I was going to go to the Newport Beach, California one before it got canceled because of the COVID pandemic and everything closing down. But I felt that too was a pivotal moment, or will be a pivotal moment as far as me being able to heal, the healing and knowing that you're not alone and seeing how people are dealing with their stuttering and just having advice and the wisdom of others and everybody getting together in the same area. So I'm excited. My plan is to go this July because it's every July, right?
Yeah, I think it's always in July.
Yeah. So my plan is to go this year for the
Cool.
first time.
Cool. Yeah, I was supposed to go to that Newport Beach one also, but COVID had other plans for the world.
Yeah.
So in terms of your work and your career as a nurse, so how much shame and embarrassment was there in terms of the challenge to speak? Was there, because I've got a couple of friends that are doctors who stutter, and um, a dentist who stutters, but I had found that confidence of making eye contact and saying what I wanted long before I went to dental school. I mean, I never would have gone to dental school and, um, and started my own business and grown the practices and all that good stuff if I hadn't had that in my case, because I was totally in my shell through the end of high school. I mean, my whole mission was to get it as close to zero as possible in terms of the number of people in the world that saw me stutter. Uh, but once getting the eye contact training, which as a side note is what we do in phase one, as you know, of Stutter with Confidence, where, I tell you guys, if anything, I want you stuttering more when you're in phase one. We go out there and we look at people, but um, but getting back to that, so when I am practicing dentistry for those, let's see, I got my license when I was 29. So for those 12 years or so, from age 29 to age 41, when I was seeing patients, the good stutter was always present. But, I was going to say what I wanted, and, I wasn't feeling inferior. I felt still somewhat annoyed about it because it slowed me down a lot, made me much less efficient, not much less, but a little bit less efficient, just because it took me longer to get my words out. So I'm not going to say it didn't annoy me at all, but I had developed patience for myself. It's like, look, I don't know how to get the damn word out of my mouth, so I'm going to battle through it, get through the sentences, and I would probably be more concise, which maybe is a good thing. Now I struggle with conciseness sometimes, you know. Um, but I was saying what I wanted. But as I mentioned, I have a couple of doctor friends. One's an eye surgeon, who definitely still has a good bit of shame and embarrassment when it comes to stuttering in front of patients. And I asked him the question, have you ever had a patient when you started stuttering get up and say, I want to trust you to do my eye surgery, or they, run away when you start stuttering? No, I've never had that. I said, that's because what they care about is whether you're a good eye surgeon. And you are an eye surgeon, you're there, you see lots of patients, vast majority of them could care less whether you're the, most fluent speaker in the world. And sure enough, he said, as far as he knows, he hasn't lost any patients based on a stutter. But was that a fear that you had as well, seeing patients, that they would think, who is this girl? Does she know? Is she competent because she has a stutter?
I feel like not necessarily with my patients. I feel more so in control of situations, especially as a nurse. You kind of choose when to talk, when to not talk, what information you want to relay, so you have more control of your situation. So more in the spontaneous moments are the ones that I have the most difficulty in. But I would stutter over the phone with the doctors whenever I report some changes in the patients or ask for orders or things of that nature. And they would either say, hello, are you still there? Or are you okay? Are you doing okay? And I would just let them know that I have a stutter, because I was doing it then. I never said it up front that I have a stutter. I always waited till I stuttered, and then if they say, are you okay? Or what's wrong? Or then I tell them that I have a stutter, and they're like, oh, okay. And then they sit back and they listen. So never felt inferior in that regard. I think I'm more, I don't know, I think I'm more hard on myself. I was afraid of the illusion of how people saw me, as far as like face-to-face contact. Over the phone was another thing. I didn't like the phone for a long time, but I made it a mission to get a job where I'm out front, where I have to communicate over the phone, because I didn't want to remain in the shadows forever. I knew I felt a certain way in high school and school, even my speech class in college. I had asked to do my speech presentations alone and just do a taping, because the anxiety of getting in front of the class was just too much for me back then. Now I don't, now I take on the challenge. Now I'm like, okay, I can do it. But then I was just so scared. So I've never had anybody, as far as look at me funny or think that I'm incompetent. I think I'm more so hard on myself than what others have actually said to me. So
We're right. And I was actually asking about your fears on that more than
mhm.
other people thinking that or acting like that. Because, in my experience, having all those experiences and, for example, what we do on phase one, going around and speaking to random people in the mall, in the streets. I mean, people really don't care about our stutter. I was more wondering whether you had that fear that people would think, you know, would think
Yeah,
less of you.
I did. And my heart would pound and my face would get red and my palms would sweat. And I, wondered what people thought about me, because I don't speak like them. People don't come across people like us often. So they don't know how to handle it. So I always felt inferior. Not that it was true, but that's how I felt.
Right, right. And what was um your impression like? Did that perspective change at all through those sessions that we did in phase one out in the real world? And the way we do it is we're on the Zoom call on our phone, and we're out there speaking to people in the malls, on the streets, telling them that we stutter and just stutter and be in front of them and learning to make eye contact in those stuttering moments. In other words, rather than looking away in shame or looking away in struggle, um, getting to that point where we can actually look at people. Did those sessions and the way people responded and the overall experience surprise you at all?
Oh yeah, it sure did. And I always told myself I need to go out and begin to stutter on purpose. I need to work on my eye contact. I've been telling myself that for a long time because I want to get over that fear. But I just couldn't bring myself to it. So whenever it was a group approach in phase one with you and the other people at Stutter, it gave me the support and the strength to move forward with that. And maintaining eye contact wasn't as hard as wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. So when I did that, it smashed or crushed the myths of people, looking at you strange or looking down. There might have been one or two or a few that do that, but otherwise people maintain eye contact because it's a normal thing to maintain eye contact. I'm so much in a habit of looking down when I speak. I don't know if they maintain eye contact or not because I'm not looking myself. So it was so eye-opening to see that they maintain eye contact with you and they're patient and they just stand there and they wait until you're done speaking. And it's a confidence booster, a major confidence booster. And I felt great after those sessions. I was scared to death whenever I first started. I remember sitting in the mall parking lot and stuff, waiting for everybody to log on Zoom. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't alone before I did this. And it was really nice to have. And there were so many people at the mall. So it was easy to get the contacts in. And it's what I needed. And I need to continue doing contacts. I haven't done any lately, but I need to keep up that momentum because it was a great feeling to have. And, the perceptions that we make up in our minds over the years and the habits that we have developed over the years, it takes time to unravel that stuff. So I need to need to keep up the momentum with the contacts. But it was a great feeling to know. And then even when I did run into people who gave a weird eyebrow or whatever the case was, it didn't hurt my feelings as much either. Usually when people do that, or people say something like, "Are you okay?" or "Did you forget your name?" I'd immediately get mad. I just get pissed off. And I don't get mad anymore. I just think, they don't know what's going on. They can't see the struggle if I am on a block. So they're really just not knowing what's going on to begin with. So there's no need to get upset about that. It's just like, that's your opportunity to explain to them what's going on. And then when you do, they're like, "Oh, okay." So instead of getting mad, Lindsey, just say, "Hey, I have a stutter," and then move on. So it was a big deal.
For sure. I mean, and it's, I haven't thought of it in this exact phrase before you were talking there, but it's kind of like the do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, right? If we were not a person that stuttered and we didn't know anything about stuttering and we saw it at first, we would be confused too, right? I mean, how many conditions out there? Well, you're a nurse and I'm a dentist, so we might know more than the average person, but still there's plenty that we're not very familiar with, right? And stuttering is one of those that sort of lends itself to confusion too, because everybody that speaks has some disfluent moments. So a lot of people think they might understand what's going on with a disfluent moment because, everybody has their little ones here and there, or maybe they've seen somebody stutter in a couple of movies, but they don't have, people are ignorant about it. And I agree with you. Well, first of all, with the instinct to get angry about that, because this is something that's very sensitive for us historically, and they don't know what they're doing. And it's, if they did know, it would be the wrong thing when they ask us, did we forget our name, sort of a thing. And that one is borderline. I mean, that one is a little more stupid on the stupid scale, but anyway, but I think and that was the title of my first podcast episode with Nina G was forgiveness. That was something we spoke about on that episode. This forgiving people, they know not what they do, and once they know, the vast, vast, vast majority of people will be totally cool. Most people will be cool even before they know. They'll just be cool, especially with eye contact, because we're kind of signaling to them when we're looking at them, look, I'm still talking. I'll just model my own old speech. The difference between doing that, looking away, and looking at somebody are very different, because now, well, for one, you're not all alone anymore in that moment. You're not over here on an island having no idea what's going on with the listener, just completely disconnected from them. When you're looking at them, yeah, you're the one stuttering, but that person's in that moment with you, right? I'm not alone anymore here. And it just sends the signal, hey, she's still talking, or he's still talking. They're still with me. They're going to finish, they're going to say something. Guess they've got a speech impediment. People figure it out so much faster when we're looking at them. And if I could summarize that experience that people have, and we've had 45 people come through the program so far. As far as I can tell, that phase one experience is universal. Everybody's had that experience. Like, wow, the world doesn't care near as much as I thought it did about my stutter. And that it actually is okay. Maybe it is okay to stutter. And I'm not going to argue that stuttering is ideal, and I've never argued that. It's not ideal, but it's okay. It's totally okay. Just like it's not, ideal to, have a challenge with whatever. Of course, we'd all like to have our, faculties and abilities be as good as possible, but and it doesn't mean that we can't communicate, that we can't say what we want to say, even if we're pushing through blocks like this. Well, we can still finish our sentence. We can still say stuff. And really, other people adjust. The vast majority will just adjust to our pace. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes you got to pause for a few seconds until Mike gets the word out. Got it. And then they do it, you know? And that's a revelation for our stuttering mind to realize it, right? That it's not that what we thought when we were kids, the conclusions we came to about our stuttering when we were a kid, in terms of what the world thinks about it and what's acceptable and what's not, they just aren't true. There's an adult, mature, courageous, I'm going to stand up and say what I want, even though I was born with a stutter mentality that is, we just see that the world is a different place than we believed it to be when we were developing as human beings, as children. And Lindsey, would you say that those experiences, those 3 2-hour sessions from phase 1 have really stuck with you in terms of your worldview and how you experience being a person that stutters in the world?
Yes, it does. It does. And I need to replace my old habits with these new habits as far as maintaining eye contact, even throughout blocks, or being able to slow down my pace and not having to try to adjust to the world around me, but it's okay to slow it down for me, because I can be a fast talker and I can be a slow talker. I can go either way. So it's maintaining the momentum and changing old habits. And then that fear and that anxiety is still innate. It still happens, even though I know it's safe. So again, just doing it over and over again, so my body doesn't have an automatic response the way it always has. So, but yeah, it helps for me to proceed and continue. It's not as scary as I thought it was, that I've thought about all these years. I know better now. So
I hear you. It's that it's a different situation when that it's there for the taking, so to speak, in terms of that it's a different world that you're in than you thought it was before. When it comes to what the world thinks about Lindsey Lambert stuttering or not stuttering. And so now it's a matter of remembering and continuing to ingrain the new habits. And on that note, we had done this previously in the program. We stopped it a few months ago, but now that you're saying this, I'm going to get it going again. At least a bi-weekly, probably Sunday, because that's when more people tend to be available, standing contact session for us to do this. Because doing this periodically, even though we know it now from those experiences, we need to continue to do it, because again, the old habits are always competing with the new habits, right? The old habits to run away, to think everybody's judging us, sort of mental stream of consciousness sort of thoughts, which were so deep in us for so long that it's definitely useful to continue to do this, but also just to see the world as contact opportunities, right? And when you're grocery shopping, say, okay, I'm going to get 5 contacts here. I'm talking to 5 people, but before I leave, And if there's any word that's sort of has been more difficult for you, we'll use that word. That's sort of, I like to call it wolf hunting, hunting the stuttering wolf, as you know. But yeah, it's good to know what needs to be done though. And again, I will get those regular sessions going again. We already do the support sessions, the practice sessions every week, but the contact sessions are really, yeah. If anything's happening every week, that should be it. So we're going to start to do that again. And it's still good for my speech. I can feel it after going out for a good contact session. I'm always stronger coming out of that. And we use, as we will talk about here, I'm sure, in phase 2, the intensive of phase 2, 30 plus hours in 3 days is where I teach you guys and the other grads that have come back to phase 2 to support and help you guys and continue to deepen their own new speech habits, learn this new technique, new for all the new trainees in phase 2. And so now when we do contact sessions, we're also practicing our technique, whereas the phase 1, when you're a new trainee, is zero technique whatsoever. It's just go out there and face our full-on stutter with no idea how to control it. But speaking about phase 2, Lindsey, as I mentioned, that intensive for 3 days. What was your impression of phase 2? And now, how long ago did you graduate or finish phase 2? Was that like 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe?
It was the end of October. So
Okay.
what is this? Yeah, about a month.
3
almost a
weeks
month
from the
ago.
time we're recording this, yeah.
Mhm.
So 3 weeks in, and sort of having that perspective to look back on phase 2 and how things have gone afterwards. What has been your impression overall?
Phase 2 helped ingrain the techniques, being able to be more aware of your speech and having the support of others. And then it was really nice to have the grads from the other programs come as well. I thought that was a nice addition to it. So I liked the breakout groups that we did, the constant repetition of enforcing our new habits. I really, really appreciated that. And I really think that it's necessary to have that time frame, because we're attempting to undo a lot of stuff. So it's nice to have those days, like those dedicated days to put forth the effort that needs to be put forth, because it was on the weekend of my mom's birthday, Halloween. And then I took off work that Friday, but it was, I wanted to do it, and it was all, I appreciated what I got out of it. So the sacrifice that I made that weekend was all the best. So.
And now you haven't graduated a few weeks ago from the time we're recording. As I told you guys in phase 2, nobody's cured here. Yes, you guys are feeling a lot more mastery over your speech mechanism now than you were before, but nobody's cured. And again, just like we were saying with the other, with the eye contact and the non-avoidance and all that, the old habits are always competing with the new habits. But overall, after the few weeks, well, and Lindsey, you've done quite a bit of speech therapy over the course of your life, right? You've seen speech
I did it
therapists.
in my school years. After I got out of high school, I stopped going to speech therapy. So I started in elementary and kept on until I graduated high school. Then ever since, no.
Gotcha. And were you taught by chance some version of easy onset or gentle onset, like where you
Yeah, an
ease,
easy
ease
onset
your way into the
by
word? Yeah,
letting
that's
out your
kind of,
breath as you're speaking, soft contacts. I know originally in elementary school, they told me that I was going to grow out of it. Another technique was to talk on a beat, talk like this every time. It's kind of like a robot. So honestly, I don't think speech pathologists really know the ins and outs of stuttering. And I don't think there is necessarily a good technique that the speech therapist can teach us. And what techniques may work in the clinic setting doesn't work out in the real world. We need to face our anxieties, face the internal struggles more so than the external. I think speech pathologists are more focused on how we sound rather than how we feel inside, and what our perception is and how we've been treated over the years from people that do not understand our speech. So I think it's more of an internal thing than an external. So
uh,
that's why I never went back. So
I definitely hear you on that. And I will say, well, I agree that there's many speech pathologists who don't understand stuttering at all in that sense. But there are some exceptions to that. There are some good ones. I've had quite a few on the podcast that do now. I mean, the best speech pathologists nowadays do really focus on the below the iceberg stuff for folks who stutter, which is huge. But sticking with, well, so you've been trained on sort of the typical technique that I would say, I don't want to give it a percentage, but a very high percentage of speech pathologists, at least in the United States, teach, which is some version of gentle onset or easy onset. I was trained on it. I can talk like that, where I barely articulate my sounds, really light, gentle, easy contacts. Now, two problems I had with that, well, three. One is it didn't work outside of the clinic for me. Fall apart as soon as I'd walk out of the room. Two is I didn't like how it sounded. It doesn't sound like me when I'm talking like this. Not that it sounds awful, or it doesn't sound great, but it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't sound like Mike Wilson talking. And I want to be me as I go through my life, not somebody artificial. And our voice, in a way, that's one of the things that makes us us, right? When we're expressing ourselves. So I don't want to sound like somebody else, even if it's fluent. That price isn't worth it. Again, though it doesn't make you fluent outside of the clinic. And another thing is, it's just like, try ordering a drink in a loud bar with easy or gentle onset. Excuse me, sir, can I have a Bud Light, please? A what? Bud Light, please. A what? It's like Bud Light. You want to, or whatever you drink, Fiddlehead, whatever your craft brew or mass-produced brew may be, or wine. You just want to communicate it to the person that's supposed to get it for you,
right.
And so, from a physical technique standpoint, and I actually think that they merge. I don't think that the physical techniques, at least the way that we teach them on the program, we use them. I don't think it's separate from psychological fully, because what do we do, right? Well, for one, whether it's yoga or meditation, for thousands of years, humans have been noticing that somehow our breathing seems to be connected with our mind. So there's an old saying, you never steal the peace. You never steal the peace of one who controls his or her breath. And I think that's a powerful statement. I'm going to say it's 1,000% true, because, you're stabbing a knife into their leg. Well, maybe you could still steal their peace, even if they control their breath, but you know what I'm saying? It's a powerful tool. And, people have been noticing it for a long time. And I think Western medicine finally is catching up to some of these Eastern traditions like meditation and yoga. in terms of the power of breathing and mindfulness, and that being able to self-soothe yourself, you know, that release of air in particular, that intensely relaxing, releasing our air, getting a big, deep, smooth breath, but also the voice projection, speaking up. We stutterers have gone through our life feeling like, many of us, like we can't be heard in the way that we want. We can't get what's in our mind to others in the way that we want so that they'll understand. Communication will happen on the level that we want it to. And it's just good public speaking 101 to project your voice, to speak up. But it's also, it links up with our perspective on the program. And a lot of this comes from Joseph Sheehan and John Harrison, for example. That stuttering is a problem of holding back on some level. That it's a problem of holding back. We never forgot how to say our name, right? Never forgot how to pronounce it. Never forgot what it was. Didn't have to formulate or anything like that. But for many of us, that can be the hardest thing. Why would that be? What's happening there? We can do it. Everything's intact, right? They can't find anything. Oh, Mike or Lindsey's vocal folds are damaged. They can't pronounce, they can't say their name anymore. That's not what it is, right? Or their lungs are damaged, or their articulators can't move forward. We always had the machinery we needed. We always knew how to pronounce our name, and yet the thing won't come out, how many times in our life. And so for me, it never made one iota of sense until I heard what's happening is we're holding it back in that moment. Now, obviously we don't want to, we're not trying to. We're trying not to stutter, trying hard to get it out. But in that process, we end up holding it back for whatever reason. How much of it is genetics? How much of it is, fear from fear-based learning from childhood, just habits, neurological genetics, whatever it is, we're holding it back. And so the learning to project the voice, just making it crystal clear between the brain and the speech mechanism I'm going, so in ways, our physical techniques, I think, merge with the psychological, and also just a pride, being able to say Mike Wilson, or what's your name?
Lindsey Lambert.
So that people can hear it and with confidence, and, because our name in a lot of ways is who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's who we are legally. That's who everybody we know and love knows us by, what they refer to us as. It's like our symbol, like our verbal symbol in this world is our name. And so, I don't think it's a coincidence. Many of us folks who stutter have struggled on that historically. I think some of it's just the awkwardness of you're supposed to know that immediately, even folks with pretty severe intellectual disabilities oftentimes can say their name, no problem, quickly. So it's awkward for us not to know it. But I think it's also wrapped up with our identity. You know what I'm saying on that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, I think it's kind of like a time pressure thing too. Hey, my name is so-and-so. You? And then they're staring at you. Then you're like, oh. For sure. So it's, not having that response in that moment as well. So
yeah, time pressure is a very real thing for us. When we feel like we got to get it out now, hurry up and get your name out, because that's what everybody does. Right. That's what the person is expecting. That's, the typical thing that happens in that situation, right? So it's like a deer in headlights, right? It's like, get your name out, and that awkwardness of the moment, people are like, why is she not telling me her name? Does she not want to tell me her name? Like you said, as a kid, some of the kids thought you were stuck up because, you weren't out there introducing yourself, making friends, necessarily being, quote, friendly because you want to stutter, right? So, there's I think those are definitely, that's the immediate reason why our name is so hard. But I suspect there might be something deeper there too with our identity and I had a good episode with Vivian Siskin, maybe 6 or 7 episodes uh, ago, where she shared, because she had trained under Joseph Sheehan, who's the one that coined the stuttering iceberg analogy back in, I think, the late 1960s, early 70s. And she said that Sheehan, and this is her perspective also, stuttering's more about our identity than it is about our speech. Now, that's not to say that the neurological, predisposition to stutter, that the stuttering we did when we were 3, I don't think was about our identity, right? That was probably about our genes more than our identities. We had a predisposition to this in most cases. But in terms of what ruins lives or what really reduces the quality of people's lives, it's more about the identity. And in particular, trying to come across as a normal, fluent, quote, normal, fluent speaker. And would you say, Lindsey, that now you go through life with more more acceptance, more or less feelings of, of inadequacy, or, that sense that, yes, I've got a stutter, but it's just a stutter. It doesn't make me less than anybody else here in this room. Because I think for me, at least up until I got eye contact training when I was 18, and for a lot of people, that's sort of the centrality of it, this feeling that if I'm stuttering, I'm less than the people I'm talking to. Is that something that has changed in your experience? And, well, whether it's since you got on the program or maybe before that point?
I would say I'm beginning to get there. I know that after the phase 1, that really opened my eyes, and I felt more comfortable with myself and who I am. That's a big thing. It's like, the weird thing is with me, I don't know, maybe it's just me. No matter what I have in life or what I've accomplished, I still feel inadequate or feel like not good enough. So after that session, because I've been talking about doing it but never did, it really helped me to realize that it's okay to be me. And that's a big thing. And I don't want to go through my life not feeling okay with being me. Was the internal struggle that I've had all these years. So, and want to get over that. So I'm tired of feeling that way. I'm getting tired of being tired is essentially where I was at. That's why I reached out to you. And that's what, that's why I'm doing that. That's why I want to go to the NSA conferences. I'm trying to take action and make moves and stuff to heal. I want to heal and I want to move on and be okay with the fact that I stutter. I'm not trying to seek fluency. I've never been, it always feels good to be fluent and not have to worry and not have that anxiety, but I know that's not realistic and I'm okay with that. I just want to, so just getting to the point that I'm okay with having a stutter and that it's okay to be me. So, and I don't know if that's kind of the same across the board or if that's just me being over analytical. I don't know. I'm extremely over analytical about everything. Like I have a type A personality. So it's tough for me to let things go sometimes. So.
No, that's perfect. Well, first of all, that's the title of the episode right there. It's okay to be me, for sure. That's perfect. And I think, Lindsey, that's really summarizing very well what the whole all 53 episodes that I've released as we're recording this and the future ones of this podcast and this program are about. It's okay to be me, right? It is what it is. I didn't ask for the stutter. I didn't want it, but I got it. But it's still totally okay to be me. And I am not inferior to anybody just because I was born with a stutter. Am I gonna win a speed talking contest? Maybe not. All right. So if life was exclusively a speed talking contest, well, then I might be not at the front of the pack. But life's not a speed talking contest. It's
Right.
not, and as far as I know, nobody ever gets awards for speed talking contests. I don't think they exist. Maybe if you're going to be an auctioneer, going once, going twice, $900, 950 sold, maybe those guys, but nobody else. And and even effective public speakers, right? Not to pick one side of the aisle or the other, but Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan were both known as great. Reagan was known, because he's now deceased. Obama is known as great public speakers. They're not fast talkers.
Mhm.
They pause. They formulate. They say limited number of words in a given minute or whatever. That's how great speakers talk, right? So actually, those that are going to win speed talking contests, at least in the way they naturally speak, are very rarely going to be your best communicators. They're just not. And that's why, actors and actresses in movies and shows, they pause. The next time anybody's watching a movie out there or a show, notice how much they pause. And they're not throwing, whatever, 200 words at you per minute. They're not like, yeah, and I went there and they did this and then I did that and it was so crazy. And that's not how they talk, because they want to communicate deeply with their audience. They want you to get every word they're saying.
Right.
They want to have dramatic pauses. They want you leaning in. They want you mesmerized by what, by their lines. That sort of, they want you engaged fully. So actually, again, good public speaking 101, things like project your voice, learn to pause, look people in the eye. It just so happens that these things that can help us in our stuttering journey in a powerful way are very much the best way to communicate for anybody. And as I like to tell you guys, and as I tell myself on the program, we're not looking to be average communicators, average speakers. We're looking to be way above average, maybe even top 1% of communicators out there. And who would have thunk that was possible for us folks who stutter, who thought we were at the bottom of the barrel when it came to verbal communication ability. So,
yeah.
And I just like that stuff. I just like not aiming for mediocrity. That makes life more fun, more exciting to me. And I know you're one of those people as well, or you wouldn't have gotten where you're at. Despite the challenges that were in front of you. So I just rambled for a while. Any thoughts on that, Lindsey?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I do have a actual quick question for you, Mike. As far as your stutter, did that run in your family? Is it genetic for you? Or where did you get your stutter from?
So I've got one first cousin on my mom's side who has it's a good bit more mild stutter, than the one I had for the first 41 years of my life. I still stutter, still see the stuttering wolf for sure. Definitely not cured, but it's a lot more mild than it was. And then I've got one other cousin who seemed to have a little bit of one, also on my mom's side, who seemed to have a little bit of a stutter when he was young, but by the time he was 12 or so, he had outgrown it.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
there's a little bit on my mom's side. And they didn't know, I mean, I've asked around my family, they don't know of any older relatives that stuttered, but as you and I know, there very well could have been, you know, some mild stutterers that just successfully hit it their entire life.
Right.
That or that nobody cared about. So after they died, they don't talk about their stutter anymore because they never cared about it in the first place, you know.
True.
So maybe it just wasn't transmitted. Oh yeah, your, you know, great uncle had a pretty good stutter. You know, it just wasn't, you know, as we found out in the program, nobody cares. Especially after childhood. And in childhood, there will usually be a few bully-ish kids that do care and that make fun of you. And for many of us, that's what defines our narrative for potentially the rest of our life. I mean, I've met people in their 70s that stutter, that say they're still living like that. They're still avoiding, they're still feeling like they're the most. I mean, I met one gentleman in his late 70s who was considering joining the program, actually, which would have been really cool. I think he probably figures it's too late for him to face these fears. But he told me, Mike, I might be the most nervous person that's ever lived. And when I drilled down on that, what he means is he doesn't talk, he's too nervous to talk to people. But it revolves around his stutter, right? I asked it, you know, if he's nervous when he's, you know, showering and only his wife is there, or when he's, you know, watching a football game. He said, no, I'm not nervous in those situations. I'm nervous when I have to talk. So he's definitely not the most nervous person that's ever lived, but he's still, that's the extent to which the stuttering wolf still has him enslaved, essentially. But it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that, right? As you found out in phase 1, really doesn't. You know, and for those that want to have more skilled, and I think I might start calling the deliberate, intentional disfluency that we use on the program, and I'll model it now where I'm stretching out some sounds and starting some words and pausing like I'm doing now. I think I might start calling this skilled disfluency, because that's really what we're learning in phase 2, is how to be skilled at disfluency rather than being unskilled with our disfluency. In other words, telling the stuttering wolf when the disfluencies are going to happen, rather than him dictating to us. That might be well, and the reason I bring that up is because, to emphasize again, we're not chasing fluency, because I think chasing fluency is a disaster. I don't want to say for everybody, because nothing's universal, but for most of us, chasing fluency, oh, I just want to sound normal. That mentality is really counterproductive. Well, would you say, Lindsey? Well, I'll speak to that, and I know this is one of the most challenging things for people, to get to the point where they will intentionally be disfluent. But have you had experiences, whether it was in the contact session when we were out, because near the end of phase 2, we bring our techniques back out in the real world, into the mall, into the street. Did you have any experiences, or what were your impressions, if you will, of using that skilled or intentional disfluency when speaking to people? Did you feel the power of that? Did you have that experience?
I did, and it was nice as far as whenever I paused, I had a longer pause in between my words and my phrases, that they just sat there and waited So it kind of mystified um, the pressure of time, the time pressure. Because, if you have a block, then you drop it, and then you just pause there in the moment for a little bit, but still maintaining eye contact so they know that you're not off in another world, that people will wait. You don't have to feel the time pressure if you don't want to feel it. So that was a big thing to me. And the eye contact, I had a contact at Target, and I came up to this random guy and was doing a disclosure to him. And I was telling him that I had a stutter and I was doing the deliberate disfluency. And he commented on my eye contact. He said, "You were maintaining great eye contact." And I thought that was, and I told him that I was beginning to work on that because I've never done it. Really, I do it for a little bit and then I look away. It's just habit. And not even if I'm in the middle of a block or not, I don't know, I don't look at people. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So
though it's kind of a catch-22, right? It makes us, well, in the moment, and I like to call it almost a force of nature, like gravity wants to pull our eyes away from facing other people's reactions in those moments when we're stuttering. So we think it's going to be really uncomfortable, but would you say it actually makes you far more comfortable when you actually do it?
It does, actually. It's the polar opposite, which is weird. So the things that we come up with in our minds is essentially what it is. So
right. I totally hear you. It's really a paradox, Eye contact is a paradox because we look away because in the moment, that's what our instinct, right? Like our lizard brain, if you will, our lower brain is telling us, look away, red alert. That they call it the amygdala, the fear, fight or flight is kicking in, and we're wanting to flee that full social moment because we're losing control of our speech.
mm-hmm.
When we hang in there, it's, well, again, it's the power of not being alone. I think we're looking at people, we're two human beings looking at each other. Yep, I'm having a block here, but hang in there and people will. And the shame, I mean, it's such a shame busting maneuver. And, to your point about demystifying time pressure, and it's so, I mean, I've been drilling using this physical technique. The deep breathing that we do is called costal breathing, and block releases, hitting holds, all that stuff for a few years now. But still, when I go out and do a contact session and really exaggerate the technique and take my sweet time with eye contact, I feel like it resets not only my amygdala, my tendency to want to get freaked out by the possibility of stuttering and social implications. It resets that, but I swear it resets my inner time clock in some sense, where I'm okay. Because if I'm okay with resisting time pressure, or if I am resisting time pressure, other people are okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm feeling it, time pressure, get it out, go faster, keep moving always. Then first of all, that increases the pace of the conversation. That just puts more pressure on me because we mirror each other. It's very natural in human beings, right? So, if somebody talks slower like this, then whoever you're talking to, and from what I understand, this is scientifically proven, other people will start talking a little slower. Or If we're talking at more of a measured pace, other people will do it. Or if we're talking super fast and going super fast all the time, then other people will pick up their pace. It's pretty natural. So if we can be the pace setter
Right.
by getting more discipline, but again, going to do contacts in an exaggerated way, where we go up to people, excuse me, where's the bathroom?
Hmm.
And by doing that, and yes, on the first one or the second one, like you learned in phase 1 and phase 2, it can, the first, second, third, maybe even up to the fifth ones are the toughest. But as you keep doing them through the day, yeah, it gets easier and easier and easier. Lo and behold, and you come out. I mean, it's phenomenal to me, the psychology. This needs to be, this might be something that we add into the research that we're doing on the program specifically for contacts, which we can do. Actually, we can do phase 1 for people, but don't do phase 2, essentially, for a while, right? Just do phase 1 and really study that alone, independent of the other stuff we're doing. But it's the mindset change. It's such a different mindset. Would you agree? Like at the beginning of those 2 hours compared to 2 hours later, what a difference 2 hours makes in the way we're seeing things, right?
Oh, yeah. Sure does. Sure does.
And what's your theory on why that is? Is it just the realization that people don't care and that it's okay that we stutter? I mean, does that?
I think it's initially getting over that fear. If you face your fears, it will show you and prove to you that it wasn't as scary as you thought it was. It's getting over that initial hump.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like their comfort zone. A lot of people like feeling, they don't necessarily like feeling that way, but that's what they know and that's what they're used to. And they're okay being there. So being able to get over that fear and then constantly proving to yourself that it's okay, that it's safe, that after constant interactions at the end of the 2 hours, it shows you that, oh, it is okay. Oh, it's not as scary as I thought. So it's getting over that initial fear and that hump. Because like I said, I've been wanting to do contacts. I've seen people do it on YouTube. I see people actually go into malls and groups. They have a support group with them. I never really see people going out and doing contacts alone, or never seen a YouTube video where they're doing it alone. They're always with somebody. But putting, doing it, just getting out there and doing it is the game changer, is what you need to do if you want to grow. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. And we're coming to the end of the time, Lindsey. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about at all?
I just want to let you know that I do appreciate the time and the effort that you're putting into this program and being able to make yourself available for people who stutter. We need a lot more people like you out in this world. And I just want to thank you so much for the time and dedication that you've shown us, and the patience. It's key, because I don't always have the greatest patience. So I appreciate and love the patience that you show and the love that you have for us and wanting to grow us as individuals. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I really do appreciate you.
Well, thank you for saying that. And you've been a great addition to the program as well. A positive force and as we say, the journey is so much more fun and so much more sustainable with a group, as opposed to trying to do it on our own, and having that support, on demand, where we can talk to each other and know for sure that we're not alone every single day, right? Almost every day in the WhatsApp group, somebody's posting, and it's a journey. Right? You grew up playing team sports. I mean, it's just
I'm
to
a team
accomplish.
player. I get more things accomplished in a team atmosphere. So,
Totally. Yeah, that's fantastic. And you know, it's sort of the analogy to like being on the rowing team. Everybody's rowing in the same direction. That boat's going to go a heck of a lot faster than when you got, you know, one person trying to do both sides the whole time, sort of thing. So, yeah.
and I also think too, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but thinking also the accountability aspect, not only the support, but the accountability, because you need somebody to hold you accountable and know that you are deciding to take the action that's needed. So I think not only support, but also the accountability that's incorporated into the group sessions.
Right. Like sports, right? It's
Yep.
coaching like sports where you need, um, well, it helps a lot to have a direction, right? We're going in one direction and we need to make sure, you know, everybody's, you know, doing their best to help the team and to help themselves. And, you know, people are much more uh, powerful, obviously, in groups, right? We wouldn't have survived as a species for sure if we were just depending on, you know, if we were all trying to live individually in this world. Our success as a species was based on our ability to get things done with each other. And,
Right.
you know, it's obviously expanded over time from families to tribes to nations, etc. But in our case, it's a stutter with confidence, you know, tribe, if you will. And we're not friendly to all the other stuttering tribes out there, but you know, and I think it's helpful to not it. It's good to limit confusion to some extent also, because as powerful as any stuttering support group is, there's oftentimes a lot of confusion over what might help, what not might, you know, not help, that sort of thing. I think it's helpful to have a clear path, right? Let's do A, B, and C, which leads to this, and then we support each other and encourage each other, and yeah, demystifying some things as to what needs to be done, and especially in terms of the facing the fears and the learning that it's okay to be me, and not just okay to be me, but it's great to be me. It's an honor. It's a privilege, right? That sort of mentality. And right. And that's empowering, right? That gives us that sort of bubbling up from within, so to speak, that um, power source, if you will, inside of ourselves that we, you know, when we learn to love ourselves and respect ourselves, that fuels us to be the best version of ourselves in the world, which helps not just us, but people around us, you know. Um, and so one last question, my famous last word sometimes, but so um, have you noticed, well, on that note of what I was just talking about, has work gotten any more fun or more, you feel more empowered? Do you feel more like you're bringing more of yourself in a positive way to work than you did when the shame and embarrassment ran deeper?
Yes, I am. And even when I have my moments of disfluency, I don't decide to beat myself up about it anymore. And that's a big thing. So, you know, I'm okay if I stutter in my meetings. Um, Everybody now is aware that I stutter at this point. I've been in my position since June, so about 5 months now. So if they didn't know, they know now. And I just feel more comfortable in the moments where I used to be not comfortable. and I let it kind of go off my back, just roll off my back. And that's my goal, to continue to have that mentality moving forward, because I don't want to go back to where I came from. So I got to keep on moving forward, and having those contact sessions and continuing to do that, and putting myself in challenging situations and opportunities to put the techniques and the realization into practice is important as far as being able to move forward and to grow. And I'm looking forward to that. And I feel better, being me. So, and people are respectful. Oh, okay, Lindsay, thank you. They treat me the same way as they treat other people that don't stutter. Because because when they first was finding out I stutter, they were like, they kind of seemed a little bit impatient. They there were things that I noticed about it. But now that they know what's going on, they know what to expect, essentially, and they treat me with respect. So
That's huge, that knowing that you're respected in the world as compared to thinking that you're not. I mean, that, and I think from a human fulfillment standpoint, feeling inferior versus feeling equal to other people is probably at the center of it, right? Like, there's nothing worse. I don't want to say nothing because there's physical torture and some things like that, but there's probably nothing. I mean, as far as living our life, there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than feeling inferior. And
yeah, it's not a good feeling.
right, because when we feel inferior, that means that on one level we think we're inferior, right? Like, we believe we're inferior, and the one person in the world whose judgment matters most is our opinion of ourselves ultimately, right? Now, in some cases that can run awry when somebody's over cocky sort of thing, but for the most part, for the vast majority of us, and this is not unique to people that stutter. A lot of people in the world are battling, feelings that they're less than others around them. And it's so de-energizing, so to speak. It cuts at our soul. So that's awesome that you feel that. And this is something from a mentorship standpoint. Well, both as you were talking about with building up these new habits, and obviously we have another group of trainees that'll be starting here in a couple of months. And so, as you know, I encourage you guys to come back to those sessions. You're a mentor for them because you've now got experience on this journey, but also it's great for your own speech and your own mentality to keep doing those contact sessions and all that good stuff. So you're a great addition into the program, Lindsay. Very happy that you decided to join. I know you were on the fence after our first conversation, but you said, screw it, I'm going to jump in and do this, and you did, and I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
We will talk soon. I'm sure we'll be talking at the practice session this week or on WhatsApp here soon. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye.